All right, so I want to just do a few problems to kind of refresh when I'm solving with the radicals. So let me edit my first problem. All right, so I'm going to isolate the radical. So for my first problem, I want to move that 5. You might need to do some moving if the radical is not isolated by itself. So I'm going to subtract 5 from both sides of my equation. So I have the cube root of x plus 1 is equal to 11. So since I'm taking the cube root, I'm going to need to raise both sides to the third power. My number will get rather large because I need 11 to the third power, but the cube root of x plus 1 cubed is just x plus 1. And then 11 to the third power gives me 1,331. So when I subtract 1 from both sides, my x value is 1,330. I want to emphasize it is always important to check your answers. By plugging this back into my original equation, I can make sure that I didn't make any mistakes and I don't have any extraneous solutions. Extraneous solutions are problems that when I solve, I did not make a mistake, but when I plug it back in, it doesn't work for me. So I'm going to check my answer. So I'm going to always start with the original. So I have 5 plus the cube root of 1,330. And then a plus 1, and this needs to equal 16. So I have 5 plus the cube root of 1,331. This should be 11 since I cubed it, but I can always check with my calculator. So you see that? There we go. To get a cube root on my calculator, if you have the graphing calculator, you can hit math. But I have this x root right here. That will give me a cube root, but I have to tell it what root I want to take. So I put in a 3, and then I'm going to hit the second for this x root button. And then it puts my 3 on the shelf for the cube root, 1,331, and it does come out to be 11. So 5 plus 11 does equal 16. So this is, in fact, my answer. All right, looking at my second problem. It is a square root, so I need to square both sides. And if I look, my square root, my radical is isolated on the left, so I'm going to square the left. When I square the right, I have to square the entire right-hand side. So I'm going to need to figure out what x minus 4 times x minus 4 is. That's going to be x squared minus 4x plus 16. So the right-hand side will be x squared minus 8x plus 16, and then the left-hand side, when I square my square root, I'll just have 14 minus the 5x. I've got a quadratic, so I'm going to put everything on the same side. I want my x squared to be positive, so I'm going to add 5x to both sides and subtract 14 from both sides. Please make sure that you're changing the sign to move it to the other side of the equation. Otherwise, it doesn't work out so well. So my right-hand side, I have x squared minus 3x plus 2. These will factor. I will not give you a radical problem where you have to use the quadratic formula to get your answers. You can use a quadratic formula, but these will always factor. So with my product sum chart, my product needs to be 2, my sum needs to be negative 3, so it's going to be 2 times 1. They need to both be negative. My leading coefficient is 1, so my two factors are x minus 2 times x minus 1. With these two factors, I set them equal to 0, and one x value is 2, and the other x value is 1. Please make sure that you set up your factors with the same signs as your product sum chart, and then when I set them equal to 0, my sign changes. I need to go through and check my two solutions. So I'm going to check 2 first, and I'm going to plug it into my original equation. It's going to be the square root of 14 minus 10. We're going to go ahead and do the 5 times 2. And this needs to equal 2 minus 4. So I get the square root of 4. And then the right-hand side is negative 2. I don't want to deal with a negative coming out of the square root because that would be like having my value down here when I graph the radical equation, I only want to deal with positives. So this too is an extraneous solution. I don't use it. Then I'm going to check my x equals 1. So I'm going to have 14 minus 5, doing my 5 times my 1, and that's going to equal 1 minus 4. So I have the square root of 9, and 1 minus 4 will be negative 3. Again, I don't want to take the square root and get a negative value. So this is also an extraneous solution. So I do not have an answer for number 2. So I'm going to put no solution. On the delta math, when they wanted to use the braces, that represented nothing as a solution. All right, and then for my last problem here, I'm going to make sure my radical is isolated, which it is, and I'm going to square both sides. So again, I'm going to need to multiply x plus 4 by itself. I have x squared plus 4x plus 4x plus 16. So the right-hand side will give me x squared plus 8x plus 16. The left-hand side, my squaring of the square root will cancel out. So I just have 9x plus 22. I'm going to subtract 9x from both sides. I'm also going to subtract 22 from both sides. Make sure that you change the signs to move it to the other side. And I'm going to have x squared minus x minus 6 is equal to 0. So with my product sum chart, my product is negative 6, my sum is negative 1. That's going to be 2 times 3, where the 3 is negative. So factoring, I'm going to have x plus 2 times x minus 3. So my x values are negative 2 when I set equal to 0 and I move the 2 over, and positive 3 when I set the x minus 3 equal to 0, and then I add 3 to both sides. I'm going to come back and I'm going to check my answers. I'm going to check negative 2 first and plug it into my original. So this would be the square root of negative 18 plus 22. And then the right-hand side will be negative 2 plus 4. So negative 18 plus 22 is 4. Negative 2 plus 4 is 2. So this works, and it is, in fact, a solution. Then I'm going to check x equals 3. And the square root of 21 plus 22. No, 27. So sorry. 9 times 3. 27 plus 22. And that's going to be equal to 3 plus 7. So 27 plus 22 will be 49, and the square root of 49 is going to be, goodness gracious, okay, don't go so fast. So I have 3 plus 4 for the right-hand side of my equation, which is 7. I put a 7. All right, so this is in fact a solution. So these two are solutions. So on the delta math, you would have put negative 2, 3, or in a reverse order, but it represents both of those. You are going to have a quiz to complete today, and let me know if you have questions.